Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a gorgeous day on Treasure Island. My name is Jack Sylvan. I'm the Redevelopment Director for the Treasure Island Development Authority in Mayor Gavin Newsom's Office of Economic and Workforce Development. Would you please rise for the singing of the National Anthem by Eric Wolf Stratum.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wonderful. It's a tremendous honor to be here today on Treasure Island with the Honorable Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, the Honorable Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus, and the Honorable Mayor of the City and County of San Francisco, Gavin Newsom. Today we stand on the brink of the future of this island by commemorating the historic agreement for the transfer of the former naval station from the United States Navy to the City and County of San Francisco and its Treasure Island Development Authority. I know I speak for many people who have worked extremely hard to make this day a reality, people on all sides of the table and across organizations, when I say that it is truly an honor and a proud moment. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our many partners and supporters who are here today. Please forgive me if I don't mention everyone. There are too many of you to name individually, but I would like to recognize, and if you would please stand, former Mayor Willie Brown, current and past members of the Treasure Island Development Authority Board of Directors, Owen Stevens, John Elberling, Claudine Chang, Doug Shoemaker, John Ram, and former member Jared Blumenfeld. Our Treasure Island Citizens Advisory Board and the Treasure Island Homeless Development Initiative, one of our great partners, and of course our private sector partners at Treasure Island Community Development, represented by Principals Terry Fancher and Chris Meany of Stockbridge Capital and Wilson Meany Sullivan, and Emil Haddad and Kofi Bonner from Lennar Urban. And to the many folks in the audience, the many members of the city family and regional partners who we work with on a daily basis. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce the Mayor of the City and County of San Francisco, the Honorable Gavin Newsom.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you all for being here. I couldn't hear a word that Jack just said because I'm sitting next to the flags, and obviously it shows who's expendable up here, person sitting on this side of the stage. But let me welcome the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and Secretary Mabus, to all of the people that helped make this day possible. Welcome and thank you for your leadership and your stewardship, to Mayor Willie Brown and all of his hard work, and his then staffer, now my staffer, Michael Cohen, who worked so diligently through 2 administrations to get us to this day, to Jack and his incredible leadership and his commitment, his constancy, and his faith in this project. I thank you, to the development team, to the residents of this island that have been patient beyond imagination and hope and expectation we would get to this point. My friends in labor, to all of those that are looking forward to the groundbreaking, which we hope is sometime next year. You know, it's pretty remarkable. This is a small 47.5, 49 square mile city. And about 10% of our land happens to be on 3 principal areas. All 3 of them former naval bases. Out there in Hunters Point, and of course the Army out on Presidio, and here on Treasure Island. 2,500+ acres. Went out in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And since then, for the last few decades, we've been talking about revitalization. We've been talking about reconstituting these pieces of property. Just 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure and privilege of signing 12 pieces of legislation marking our efforts over the course of 2 decades in Hunters Point, where we signed documents not only transferring that property, but creating a framework, an economic development framework for 10,500 new housing units, 32% of them below market, hundreds of thousands of square feet of new retail space, 300 acres of new parks and open space. Yes, a new stadium for somebody, someday, for something, as well as revitalizing some public housing, which is long overdue, the Alice Griffin Public Housing site. This was an extraordinary moment. And here we are, just a couple weeks later, celebrating another extraordinary and historic moment. We have been talking about this since 1993. Informal process that began this BRAC process, the formal negotiations in 1994. The Navy ceased operations formally here in about 1997. We're standing remarkably on a WPA project, where folks went out there and started taking sand and rubble and rocks and put this new landfill out here. It was all for the World's Fair, 1939 and 1940. And then it was supposed to be converted, only imagine, as an airport. This was San Francisco Airport. Luckily, there was some wisdom, and that vision did not take shape. But since then, for over half a century, the Navy's been out here doing administrative work and training work. And we've been figuring out what exactly to do in the last decade and a half. Now, the challenge was we couldn't do it alone. We needed to work with the Navy. We needed a process of an agreement. We needed a private partner. And we worked to gain that support, but it wasn't easy, because this is a different era, appropriately, where you can't just take a dollar bill out of your left pocket and hand it to the Secretary of Navy and say thank you for the property and walk away and start the development. That we needed to create a different paradigm, a different framework with a participation agreement. And really what we're celebrating here is a long negotiation where we've developed a strong partnership with the Navy and the private developer, where if we do well, the city, if the developer does well, then the Navy does well. Our federal taxpayers do well. We have a participation agreement that in many ways we think will become a model for other similar type agreements across the country. It was not easy to put together, but we're here today to celebrate that agreement. We're here today to celebrate a 2-page term sheet that the Secretary, myself, and the Speaker and others agreed to in December of last year, that now is about an 80-page legal document, a financial framework for the future of this site. And we're here to celebrate that we're just months away, sometime next year, of developing literally thousands and thousands of jobs, 8,000 housing units, 30% of the units below market, another 300 acres of open space, new wetlands, a new ferry terminal of sorts, a smaller version, a new waterfront, the most progressive environmental policies organized around this sustainable development that will allow this to be arguably the most environmentally friendly infill development in American history. It's an extraordinary vision, an extraordinary project that will also appropriately include some wind generation, not surprisingly, and some state-of-the-art efforts around photovoltaics. And we hope eventually that wave power project that we have here off the coast will also play a key role in terms of the cogeneration and the generation of renewables that will mark and distinguish this great redevelopment. So that's why I'm here, in thanks and gratitude for all those that worked hard to get us here. I want to thank, though, just once again, the Secretary for his willingness to think differently and look differently at this project. This project was dead many, many times, but it was because of his willingness to look at this in a new light and consider things that previous Secretaries of Navy had not considered, because of the great work of his staff and folks at the Department of Defense, and because, more importantly, of the incredible commitment, not just passing interest, of Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who stewarded this thing through 3 presidential administrations, Secretaries of Navy, mayors like me that come and go, members of boards of supervisors and Treasure Island development authorities that stuck it out for all of this time that we're here. So to Nancy Pelosi, thank you yet again. What a remarkable, remarkable effort. You deserve enormous amount of credit. We thank you. We're proud of you. This is a big deal. On top of that, Hunters Point, which was a big deal, Trans-Bay Terminal, which is a big deal, Doyle Drive, that's a big deal, the Bay Bridge, which is a big deal. I don't, this is just the getting the things done, Speaker, not someone who's talking the talk. And it's my honor now to ask up to the podium a fan of Major League Baseball who took the time to come out here a day early and visit with the Giants. They did not have the kind of day we were hoping on Sunday, but someone who's very familiar with San Francisco that has opened up his heart of sorts and his mind and his team to this effort, and someone that, again, we simply wouldn't be here without his resolve to get us here, Secretary Ray Mabus.
Thank you. What a great day, and what a great introduction. I'm coming back, and next time Lincecum is going to win. I'm so happy to be here today with this group of people up here and out here. The culmination of almost 2 decades of very, very hard work has come to pass today as the Navy officially transfers Treasure Island to the city and the people of San Francisco. We owe an absolute heartfelt thanks to the people who have worked so hard to achieve this goal. 2 of the people who have worked the hardest, and 2 of the people that it's been my privilege to work closely with, are sitting here today. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Mayor Gavin Newsom. The mayor said some mighty nice things about me, but I'll tell you, this would not have happened without the Speaker and the Mayor. I had been Navy Secretary about 10 minutes when the Speaker called and said, "Can we do something about Treasure Island?" I went up and talked to her, and then I talked to the Mayor, and it was a group effort, a team effort, and we stood on the work that other people had done, and a couple of those folks are here today. Mayor Willie Brown, and my predecessor as Secretary of the Navy, John Dalton, both of whom were here when this process started, and both of whom laid the groundwork for what we are able to do here today. So thank you. The United States Navy's association with Treasure Island began 70 years ago, right after the completion of World Expo 39 and 40. The Navy took this over, and from these shores, tens of thousands of sailors and Marines left to fight in the Pacific in World War II. And a lot of those sailors and Marines who left from here, this was the last time they saw America. and they made the ultimate sacrifice for us. As we transfer this treasure, this island, from the Navy back to the city, I hope that all of us will remember the service and sacrifice of every sailor, every Marine, living and dead. The people who left from here and the people who serve today, risking everything so that we can celebrate today. That legacy lives on in the young men and women who wear the cloth of this country and who are deployed around the world as we meet here today. When the famous or infamous base realignment and closure process started in 1988, the final result of any individual base closure and transfer could not have hoped for a better ultimate outcome than what's been achieved with Treasure Island. The Navy's charge in the BRAC process is to dispose of property in a manner that promotes economic development. That has been done. The transfer of Treasure Island is a win for San Francisco. It is a win for the state of California, a win for the United States Navy, and a win for the American taxpayers who paid for this base and all the infrastructure that was here. Because of this transfer, the American taxpayer gets fair market value for Treasure Island. Because of this transfer, hundreds of millions of dollars in economic development will flow into the city of San Francisco and into this whole area. And because of this transfer, Treasure Island will bring thousands of great jobs right here. First, as new buildings are built, and then as this island more and more. And this new development becomes an ongoing and integral part of the city of San Francisco. For our part, as the mayor said, the Navy is going to get significant rewards by sharing of the portion of the revenues generated by this island. Revenues which can in turn be used to make sure that our sailors and Marines have the tools that they need to do the mission that they are being sent on. I am incredibly grateful to two fine public servants, Mayor Newsom and his staff, Speaker Pelosi and hers, and the entire California congressional delegation for their commitment to resolving this transfer. Speaker Pelosi has been working on this issue since her very early years in Congress. And over the years, even though negotiations have sometimes been difficult, the Speaker has always had the best interest of the city, of the state, of the Navy, and of the nation at heart. What we have achieved here can serve as a template for future transfers of military bases around the country. I'm also very grateful to the Speaker for her leadership on energy and on energy legislation, and for her commitment, along with the President, to changing the way we use and produce energy in the United States and building toward a new energy economy. It's a tremendous importance, the way we produce energy and the way we use it, to the Navy and Marine Corps, because how we power our ships and our aircraft is fundamentally about national security, just as energy reform for the country at large is about energy independence, national security, as well as about economic development and job creation. Here on Treasure Island, as the mayor has so eloquently pointed out, there's an opportunity to demonstrate what happens when sustainable development and sustainable energy usage is considered from the very beginning of a project. Here on Treasure Island, there's an opportunity to build a working model of the President's new energy future. And because of the leadership of the public servants who stand here today, I look forward to seeing that model become an example for the rest of the country to follow. thank you so much for being with us today. It is my incredible honor and pleasure to introduce to you your native daughter, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What an honor it is for us to welcome Secretary Ray Mabus, the Secretary of the Navy, to Treasure Island for this very important occasion. He is a lifelong public servant, a governor, ambassador, and secretary. He has focused on critical issues facing our nation, education and national security, currently leading our efforts to restore the Gulf region. But as an ambassador to Saudi Arabia, as a governor of Mississippi, as a person committed to a better future for America, he sees the connection of all of these issues. I appreciate your leadership. I thank you for acknowledging that the military is one of the biggest users of energy in our country, and thank you for your leadership in connecting the military with energy efficiency. It's a national security issue for sure. I want to join you in welcoming one of your predecessors, Secretary Dalton, here today. We stand on your shoulders and those of Mayor Willie Brown for the foundation that was laid for us to go forward. When we finally got a president, I'll be very frank, who understood the vision of Treasure Island. It shouldn't have been so hard to explain, but for some reason it was. But we were ready. We were ready with new leadership to capture the opportunity. Michael Cohen, thank you for your work under Mayor Brown and now under Mayor Newsom. Mr. Mayor, you know that when we started these meetings, we were practically writing to each other on stone tablets. It seems it was that long ago, and leading up to our teleconferencing. When the mayor was not in Washington advocating for the city of San Francisco and this initiative in particular, I would walk in a room and there he'd be. Ah, there he is on the screen advocating for San Francisco and these issues in particular. Because as the mayor indicated, what did you say? The city is 47 square miles. This is a tiny city. My district is 32 square miles within the city of San Francisco, and all three, Mr. Secretary, of those military bases are contained in those 32 square miles. The Presidio, the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard, and Treasure Island. Naval Shipyard has long been on a closure list, but the Presidio and the Treasure Island came in the late 80s. First, we fought the closures, then we accepted our fate and had a transition and I appreciate the Secretary saying that it's a model to the country on how we go forward. The mayor, again, his leadership has been relentless on behalf of this project, working with local leaders and, as I said, either flying to D.C. or telecommuting to D.C. in a relentless way. Mayor Brown was similarly relentless, and that's why when we had a new president, we were ready. I mentioned Michael Cohen as the director of the San Francisco Office of Economic and Workforce Development. Michael, thank you for your leadership in this and so many issues. And Jack Sylvan, thank you for your work and leadership as director of Joint Development, City of San Francisco, Office of Economic and Workforce Development. Because the staff worked so hard to make all of this possible, I want to be sure that they were recognized. But there's so many other partners who have been acknowledged, and I associate myself with the remarks made in praise of them. From the beginning of World War II, Treasure Island served as a critical base for the United States Navy. As I mentioned, Hunters Point, Presidio, Treasure Island. How proud San Francisco has been with our association with our men and women in uniform, and the role they all play to make us keep us the home of the brave and the land of the free. But when the Closure Commission came along and decided our fate, as I said, at first we resisted, and then we used our imagination. We wanted to be respectful because during the war, this base served as the center for receiving, training, and deploying members of our military serving in the Pacific Theater, as the Secretary said so beautifully, some seeing this as their last view of America after they went off to war. In the decades that followed, the Navy continued to train service members here, and this facility became a crossroads for sailors and Marines, those on their way to bases across the Pacific and those coming home. When the base was set to close, leaders of this city and its representatives in Congress recognized the potential for Treasure Island to remain a vital piece of our nation's region's success and future. Today, on the basis of this great history, Treasure Island officially enters its next chapter, this time as a center for jobs and economic development. Thanks to the agreement between the Navy and the City of San Francisco, we can now move forward on plans to build essential infrastructure, open space and parks, hotels and affordable housing for local residents, and very respectful of the residents who are already here. Thank you for being with us today. Remaking Treasure Island will mean significant contributions to industry central to San Francisco's economic vitality: tourism, retail, restaurants, and entertainment, and manufacturing. This project adopts innovative practices to extend our leadership in sustainability. The mayor and the secretary have already mentioned them through green building standards, congestion management, innovative stormwater treatment, and infrastructure that reduces energy use. And it marks another step forward in our drive to transform former military installations, like the Presidio and Hunters Point, into centers of commerce that generate jobs and strengthen our communities. Perhaps most significant of all, this project means critical investments and benefits for our city and our region's economy. More than $5 billion in public and private investments. $5 billion. Nearly 3,000 permanent jobs, 5 times the number of civilian jobs that existed when the base closed. Just before the base closed, it had 1/5 of the number of civilian jobs it will have as we go forward. 2,000 temporary jobs per year during construction, and up to 8,000 new residential units, 30% of which will be offered at rates affordable for low and middle income families. All 3 of us have touched on this. We want you to know that is the commitment. In the wake of a deep economic crisis that took a toll on so many in the San Francisco Bay Area and across the country, these forthcoming economic benefits could not come at a better time, and they will provide a welcome boost to our city's economy and to the entire region. This transfer of this base to San Francisco took a team effort. All of us who represent this area wanted us to have the best possible agreement, not only for San Francisco and the Bay Area, but for the U.S. taxpayer. For the U.S. taxpayer, which everyone here is. So this was about your money and your community. Let's do this in the best possible way. It's a local priority for all of us in office here, and I want to commend Senators Feinstein and Boxer for all of their leadership to help secure an agreement to transfer this land. They were essential to our success in doing this. Partnered with the Mayor Brown earlier, and now with Mayor Newsom, to keep the city's interest front and center. They were great leaders in this. And with Governor Schwarzenegger to engage key Republican members of the House Armed Services Committee. I don't know anyone was here from the state, but I thank the governor for that help with the Republican members. Those Republican members joined our chairman, Ike Skelton, to include provisions in last year's defense bill to expedite overdue base transfers, collaborated with the House Armed Services Committee to add flexibility regarding compensation for land value to start the process of igniting economic growth here and in communities nationwide. Again, in what we were requesting, not only did we benefit because we had the legislation, but it benefited other communities around the country. Treasure Island's roots in San Francisco's history have remained firmly planted through our nation's Navy. Now those roots will go deeper, providing a foundation for growth, prosperity, and opportunity for our economy. Today, I'm very honored to be joining Mayor Gavin Newsom. Again, without his leadership, this would not have been possible. He was relentless, as he always is, effective, smart, visionary, and using all the new technologies to make sure that we were never off the radar screen or any other screen in terms of moving this along. Again, as I said, the foundation that was laid by previous mayors and certainly Mayor Willie Brown. Now these roots go deeper, and it's a sign of signing this endorsement agreement today. We ensure that this site will remain a source of jobs for our community for decades to come. All of you who played a role in this should take great satisfaction that part of your legacy of public service was to something that the mayor called a big deal, a very big deal for our community, for our country. And in closing, I just once again want to salute the Navy for keeping Treasure Island safe for us so that we could come to this day of transition to civilian use that is also a sign of the strength of our country. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Secretary, and Madam Speaker. I would also like to acknowledge the tremendous partnership that we've had in the Department of Defense, Dorothy Robine and Rob Hertzfeld, and the folks in the Navy's BRAC office that we work with on a daily basis, some of whom are here, some of whom are not, including Jackie Fannensteel, Mr. Roger Natsuhara, Doug Gilkey, Laura Dushnak, and Kimberly Kessler. So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Secretary, and Madam Speaker, I'd now like to invite you to the table to my left to commemorate with your signature the historic agreement for the transfer of former Naval Station Treasure Island from the United States Navy to the City and County of San Francisco. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our program. Thank you so much for being here today. We hope that you'll join us for a reception, which is in a building just to our right. It's a short walk in the Casa de la Vista. There are staff of the mayor's office who will be along the way to help you get there. And we hope to see you over there. Thank you again for joining us on this wonderful day.